Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I promise that I will be honest with you.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you have some opposition to swearing? Is that
Yes,
the
I do.
concern?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you affirm that you will be honest and tell the truth today?
I just told you that I would be, and I will be. I will be completely honest and transparent in regards to the matter of which we're here today.
Okay.
And my experience with this circumstance.
Okay. Great. And can you state your full name?
Jason Allen Spillers.
All right. And how old are you, Mr. Spillers?
36.
All right. And you're wearing orange.
Yeah.
Are you in custody at this time?
Not in the chair. I didn't mind to open up my home to them at all. I let them stay there.
We've talked a lot about the three women
Yeah.
and Z. During the entire time you knew them, was Hannah a part of that?
Yeah, she was there. She was there all the time. She was always around. There was never any point in time where Nimsi, as I will refer to her, there was never a point in time where Nimsi wasn't around.
Was Nimsi her Hebrew name that was
Yes.
given? Okay. May I approach the witness? Do you recognize what's depicted in States 86?
Yeah, that's her.
Okay. Is this the child that you spent time around?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to publish States 86. And you said that she was always around.
Yeah, she was.
How did they manage the care of Nimsi? Was everybody involved in that, or was it?
I would say it was more predominantly Kanani,
Okay.
but the other girls definitely were there to support, and Z definitely was there to support.
Okay. We have tissues there if you need them.
Yeah.
So, all these periods of time where you talked about weeks at a time spending with him and the
Yeah.
women, was Nimsi a part of that too?
100%.
Okay.
That's my little friend right there. We grew a pretty significant bond together.
Okay. What do you mean by that? What was your relationship with her like?
I mean, she was like I say, she was my friend. You know, she would always wave and smile at me, and she would come to me and like allow me to hold her. You know, and she wasn't always like that with everyone.
Okay.
We were definitely, I was definitely pretty close with that baby, and all of the individuals in the group recognized that particularly the baby would go to me. But a lot of babies are like that. I'm like that with a lot of babies.
Okay.
Like, you know, I come from a large family. My dad has 5 siblings and my mother has 4. They all have children. All my aunts and uncles have children except my dad's oldest brother. And so, you know, I'm the oldest on my mom's side. I have like 11 cousins, you know, and some of those cousins have kids now, you know, and I've held dozens of babies and been around, you know, family, and I've spent a lot of time, I've held a lot of babies, you know, and interacted with a lot of babies, and she was a really bright light and a special child, and we got along. She was, I cared deeply, as I still do, obviously.
All right. Let me go back. You mentioned a minute ago that, you know, in terms of the terminology of mentally ill or insane, and you said, you know, you're going to have to shoot me straight on that. What I want to talk to you about is just observations.
Well, that we can do.
I don't need you to put labels on anything.
Awesome. Well, if you find me you know, I'm just speaking freely now, you know, so there may be points and times where, you know, words come, where I use words to describe the state, Kanani's state, mentally impaired, insane. Like, I mean, erratic, manic behavior. You know, I'm using these words because I don't know what other words to use.
Okay.
And so if you would like to direct me in another way, I will use the words that you would like for me to use. So
let me ask you a pointed question. In terms of, do you think collectively as the group that you all maybe had some untraditional worldviews? Or not subscribed to by the masses, I'll say.
Not subscribed to by the masses? Yes, I'll take that compliment.
Okay. And I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm just trying to get to the root of it.
I'll take that compliment, like I said.
The purpose of my question is I want to establish with you, and I will do it through questioning, the difference between an independent delusion that Kanani might have been having versus belief systems that you all adopted that maybe are a departure from the masses.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I find that to be rather irrelevant to the whole thing because, you know, we're talking about a woman, and so here's the thing. I'm going to lay it down for you like this. When we went to Florida, me and Jennifer, we had like a real curiosity about this, and we're like, you know, what kind of strangeness is this? Like, you know, I met Z. I think, like I say, I feel like I had met the wives like briefly at Peggy's house, but only for a minute, and I can't remember if that's how it was or not, or if I didn't actually meet them until Florida. But I feel like I don't mean to be disrespectful or interrupt you, but we have to have whatever your responses are be in response to my question. Okay, very good.
So let me just ask a narrow question.
Very good.
In terms of the belief systems or the things that you may have discussed amongst the group, was there any type of belief that the world is fake or things are not real around?
Not real?
Mm-hmm.
Well, define real.
Okay. Do you recall having discussions or the group subscribing to some type of a belief that... No, I asked you a question. Okay. I asked you to, or I made it as a statement, define real. Okay. Was there any belief system amongst your group that, like, there is an alternate reality or that what we're perceiving or living is not actually what we're perceiving or living? So I'm going to answer that with facts. Okay. Okay. And we're going to go back to what I was talking about before, that it is fact that atoms, A-T-O-M-S, exist, and that atoms are mostly just empty space. Okay? And so they are colliding particles that form a visual and materialistic reality that we experience right now. Now, if we are to define what is real, I mean, then you are to define what is real by your senses, because these fundamental understandings of factual reality are understood by, you know, intellectuals all over the world. Now, whether the common ignorant masses can put them into practical application for their own life and their own ability to strive to understand and comprehend themselves and see reality as it is, I mean, I live amongst the inept, but to describe something that is mostly empty space as real is scientifically, logically, and factually repugnant. Okay. So real would mean that we have our senses and we are connected to these bodies. And like many tens, hundreds of millions of individuals around the world, I hypothesize, and I would call it to be my belief that that we all have souls, that there is a soul, that there is an energetic manifestation that is participating in this reality in a body. So there's something greater. There is something greater. To answer your question directly, there is something greater happening here than what the inept can perceive or choose to perceive. Okay. And did Z and Kanani and Gami and Shalig, did they all sort of share that view? Are those things that you all discussed? Well, this intellectualism was shared by myself and Z for sure. Like, okay. We talked about this immediately. Okay. But like I say, I mean, I know several individuals who are able to keep up with these like types of conversations, and
and comprehensions of fact.
Did you all believe that you had some type of broader consciousness, or I don't know if I'm using the right
I think that
terminology.
everyone has the potential to have a broader consciousness.
Okay.
That did I know it to be factual that I am pursuing that, and that the average individual is not? 100%.
Okay. And was that sort of the tone of the group in terms of like your,
Absolutely.
I guess, broader calling in the world?
I mean, you know, I'm not going to sit here and try to put words into the mouths of these other individuals. Now, we have some agreement. So it's like, is that a delusion? I don't think so. You know, it's like, is that delusional to say that? Is she in a delusional state when she's making these proclamations? Yes. Is she in a state where she has no memory of what she's doing and is like absent of herself? Because Kanani is a sweet and caring and loving mother. You know, like I saw her in May, and that's, you know, when Jennifer and I went to Florida, that was the whole thing. Like we saw this baby, and there was this bright, happy, joyous, cared for child. I've been around enough babies to where I know you can tell when they're not in proper care from their mothers. And there was no sign of that whatsoever. Like this baby was completely carefree and happy and joyous, and Kanani was an excellent mother. She was attentive, she was warm and nurturing and loving. She would never strike her husband or the sister wives in the way that I saw her later. She would never do these things. Like, I mean, it was just very apparent, and that was in the child. Like, you could see that in the child. It's like, if I had an aunt who was a little on the loud side, you know, it's like even when her children were little, they were a little on the loud side. You know what I'm saying? Like, children imitate their parents. And so you see it in this child, and you're watching Kanani care for this child, and they're all like fine and wholesome. There's like a lot of wholeness in their group, wholesomeness, and the baby was just fine. Like I wouldn't have continued a relationship with these people. The foundation, because I like Z, I did, and when I first met him, you know, he's a highly intellectual individual who likes to, and we shared a lot of world views that are based on fact and science and understanding of like, you know, teachings and things like that. So we hit it off. But
let me ask you. I don't want to get too far afield of what the original. That's okay. Sometimes you get going and then we don't even remember what the question was.
Full scope.
I get it.
Yeah.
So I want to narrow back in on. You said you had seen her punch herself or injure herself?
100%.
Had you ever seen anybody else restrain her or physically assault her?
Not like that.
Okay.
There was this one time where she tried to jump out of a window in the place where we were staying in Virginia Beach, but and Z like hugged her, like basically put his arms around her and stopped her. But I've seen Z sit there and take licks to the face and do nothing. You know, like I've seen these other girls be abused by Kanani in her delusion. Like I say, she never did that. And when she would come back, she would start crying, and we'd talk about what had happened and how she was attacking people, and she'd start crying, you know, and have like an emotional breakdown. Like she'd just be like, I'm so sorry, you know, and like she's just not that way. Like Kanani's not really like violent like that. Like she doesn't hit. I mean, I had never seen her do that in a clear and like I only saw her do that when she was like losing her mind, as I say.
Okay.
You know, and this just continued to get more and more intense and severe as time went on.
All right. Now you said, I want to go back a little bit to the incident on the 25th of November.
Yes.
So you said Sandra Torres intervened, that she said things about Hannah's going to be taken away, she's going to have the baby taken away, and that sort of set Chloe on this path where she believed that she had to protect Hannah.
Yes.
How did that incident end on the 25th?
The incident ended, so like I say, this woman that, you know, is sitting here, Sandra Torres pulls off on the side of the road to rescue this woman, so she would say, and this woman who's sitting here willingly and knowingly gets into a car with her husband and her child and her sister to leave, to escape this belligerent, seemingly psychotic, definitely drunk, and threatening of gun violence individual. And Sandra Torres, like I say, Sandra Torres was trying to block Z from leaving. He's like, we're out of here. Sandra Torres goes into Z's car. Now, this is a random person. Keep in mind, this is just some woman that pulls off on the side of the road, decides to make this her business. Kanani's screaming about how she wants to call her mom. We're all standing around. Let her call her mom. No one's trying to prevent her from doing this or do anything except run in the road and cause harm to herself. Please, here's the phone. Here's the phone. Call your mom, She never did call her mom. She was just being belligerent, and so is Sandra Torres. And then Sandra Torres gets out of her car and goes over to Z's car and takes the keys out of his ignition. So keep in mind, this is a stranger who pulls off on the side of the road and then goes into a man's car who's being calm and cool and let my wife call her mom if that's going to make her feel better. Goes into the car, pulls the keys out of his car, and says, you're not going anywhere. You're going to jail. We're taking this baby away from you. You guys are disgusting people, all this stuff. To strangers. She's doing this. Z takes his keys back from her. Ma'am, this is my property. Give me my keys back. She starts slapping him and assaulting him. They get in the car and leave. Peggy stands... after they had pulled a 50-point turn to try to get past this woman, because she's moving her car to try to block them from leaving. She pulls over to rescue somebody and then tries to stop them from leaving in their own will, and tries to make a huge scene out of it to try to hurt them in some kind of way. She pulls off, and then she starts, and then Peggy is standing in front of the car, and she basically, Sandra Torres started attacking Peggy, beating the crap out of her, slamming her head up against the hood of the car. And I sat there and watched that. And now Z and Kanani and Shayla had already pulled away at this point. So I'm just standing there watching Peggy get her ass kicked, pretty much. And I was I sat there and I watched for probably a little bit too long, to be honest with you. That's how I felt about it, because of the way she was getting beaten by this woman. This woman's very tall and broad-shouldered Nordic woman, and Peggy's this 5'0" petite woman who is not a fighter. This woman has a violent history, and so she's assaulting Peggy and beating the crap out of her. And so I put my body in between Sandra Torres and Peggy, and then Sandra Torres punched me in the face once, and I went like this, and she punched me in the face again, and I picked her up and I put her down on the ground, and I got in my car and I left. And that was the end of that day.
What do you mean you put her down on the ground?
I picked her up and I forced her body to the ground.
Okay. How would you describe a slam? A push?
I picked her up and I dumped her onto the ground, yeah.
You picked her up
yes.
physically off of the ground?
I physically picked this drunken, belligerent woman who had just assaulted 3 people and was threatening us with gun violence up off the ground, slammed her down on the ground, got in my car, and I pulled off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were the police ever involved?
Yes, they were.
Okay. When you were there, were the police involved?
No, they weren't.
Okay. Did you call the police?
No, definitely not.
Why not?
Because I rarely find that justice comes from these types of circumstances when police are involved. And I just don't really like you guys.
You've told me that a number of times, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's okay. We don't have to like each other.
That's okay. And that's not personal. I just find that the legal cult
sure.
and the legal culture, we use that word cult to describe culture. It's just a shortened version of that word. I find that the legal cult is it brings injustice more often than not.
Were you all collectively as a group sort of not call the police type of people?
Peggy was definitely not call the police type person. I asked her, I was like, you should really call the cops. She's got a black eye and she's all busted up and hair pulled out of her head by this woman. And I was like, man, you should really call the cops. She's like, I'm not calling the cops. She's like, I don't want anything to do with them. We'll just let this go. We'll just be gone with her, you know, and like just go about my life.
So you said you got in the car and left, and when did you become aware that the police had been involved?
That's a good question. I can't remember, like days later or something like that, or I can't remember, honestly, when I became aware.
Did you ever get interviewed or spoken to about those circumstances of what happened on the 25th?
No, I never did. Nobody
Okay.
ever asked me about this. This is the first time where I've been able to speak plainly before a court or before anyone involved in that openly about the events of that day.
Okay, so you left. At some point you became aware that someone else had contacted the police.
Now, when Nimsy died on December the 8th, I gave an interview where I spoke about this circumstance to a woman named Tiana Cruz, I think is her name.
With Canton Police Department?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I told her about what had happened
Mm-hmm.
and how, because, you know, that day was kind of like a breaking point, and it manifested into, I mean, looking at this from like an outside perspective as best I can, you know, without, you know, it's like I'm very emotionally attached to the baby and to, you know, what happened. But it's like that day, Kawani's delusions go from I'm in danger, these things, to the baby's in danger, to the baby's going to die, they're going to take, to a dead baby.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that's what just happened. You know,
Okay.
so I spoke that very clearly, as far as I can remember in my interview, because I was just so in shock that day. Like I couldn't even believe that this is happening. Like it was just like.
All right. Let me ask just directly. From that incident on the 25th, did you get charged with anything?
I did.
When did you learn that you were being charged with something?
I got charged with an assault on Sandra Torres.
And when did you learn that that was the case?
April of the following year.
April of 2021.
Yes.
Okay.
I had no idea.
Did you have any contact with law enforcement between November 25th when it happened and when you got arrested in April of 2021?
No, I did not.
Okay. So you just find out because you have a warrant for your arrest?
Yeah, I got pulled over.
You got pulled over and you
Yeah.
got arrested from a warrant from the incident on the 25th?
That's right, from
Okay.
6 months earlier.
Okay. And what happened with that case?
Well, I wanted to go to trial because I thought that I could win in the name of self-defense, you know, and protection of Peggy Schindler. And Peggy was going to come and testify in my trial that she was being attacked belligerently. Z and Shaylee were going to come and testify that this woman was threatening them and being crazy, and she reeked of alcohol, and she's a known drug user because I know her.
Mr. Spillers, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but we just got to rein it in. So what happened with your charges?
Oh, I got a misdemeanor.
Okay.
I ended up with a misdemeanor.
Did you plead guilty?
I did plead guilty pursuant to Alfred Law.
And what does that mean?
Alfred Law, I was told, means that I maintain my innocence, but I was being held in jail. Like they were holding me in jail, and I couldn't afford my bond, and so I waited for years for a trial for that, and they never gave me a trial, and so I finally pled guilty to a misdemeanor. And I think that they just gave me a misdemeanor because they knew that they would lose in trial, and they didn't want to afford that opportunity.
So you did a time served misdemeanor.
Time served. They sentenced me to 75 after 22 months of incarceration.
You were in jail for 22 months?
I was in jail for 10 months, and then I made bond, and then they re-incarcerated me after 8 months. They held me in house arrest for 8 months.
Okay, so
all over
that's
this.
house arrest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All over that.
And then you pled guilty under Alford.
Yes.
Which
to
is
be
just
released from jail.
to a misdemeanor.
Do a misdemeanor.
Okay.
That's right.
All right. You mentioned that after that incident, Chloe started having paranoia surrounding needing to protect Hannah. Did you ever witness, perceive, or hear her say anything about ever believing Hannah was a danger to her?
Absolutely not.
Did you ever hear her articulate that she felt threatened by Hannah in any way?
No.
Did you ever hear her say that she needed to defend herself against Hannah?
No.
Okay. Was all of the things that you heard with relation to Hannah her needing to protect Hannah?
Yes.
Okay. You talked about the sort of response of Shaylig and Gami and Z and you whenever Chloe would have, whatever you want to call them, episodes.
Sure.
What was the response amongst the group in terms of helping her?
Well, I think mostly it was like trying to find patience, and trying to find a way to keep her calm and get her to at some points like stop hurting herself. Those are the times where I've seen Z like hold her arms, because she's punching herself in the face, or she's striking somebody else. And I have seen him like hold her hands, be like, honey, calm down, calm down, calm down, and that was pretty much it, like I never, we would all respond in our own way. I tried to just be as diligent and patient and kind as I could, and try to talk her, because like I said, she would be, she would come, Kanani's a pretty open person, like she talked plainly and openly about, sexual assault by her own family members and, all of these things that had led her to be this like fractured person, individual rather. And I would, just be there to listen. That's what I was getting at. Like I would just be there to listen to her about how she was feeling and if there was anything that I could do, and try to avoid that right hook, if she was trying to, kick and scream. And but she only did that to me a couple times.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned that incident on the 25th where she ran out in the road.
Yeah.
After that happened, between then and December the 8th, did she go spend time with her parents at her family's house?
No, she didn't. Not
Was
that I recall.
Was there ever a period of time where
whoa. You mean after Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Yes. I'm sorry. I thought you meant from October.
No. The incident on November 25th.
Yes.
And she said, I want to call my mom.
Yes, she did.
Okay.
She did say that.
Did she ever go see her mom and stay with her mom?
Yeah, actually, they came later that day. Eric and Renee. That was like the second or third time that I had met them.
Okay.
They came to pick Kanani up.
On what day? The 25th?
It was either that or the next day.
The 25th or the 26th?
Yeah, right around there. I can't. It's 4 years.
Okay.
So you're at like.
You're doing fine. So either on the 25th or the 26th, Eric and Renee Driver came and picked up Kanani.
Yeah.
Okay. Where did they come to?
They came to Peggy's.
To Peggy's house? Okay. And that was in North Carolina?
Yes.
All right. And where were they living at that time? The drivers.
Oh gosh, Tennessee.
Tennessee. So they went from Tennessee.
Knoxville, as far as I know.
They went from Tennessee to North Carolina and they picked up Chloe.
That's right.
All right. Did Hannah stay with you guys?
She stayed with Z.
She stayed with Z. Okay.
Yes.
And to your knowledge, did Chloe go back to her parents' house?
Yes, she did for like a few days.
Okay. And when and how did she rejoin the group after she went to her parents for a couple of days on the 25th or 26th?
I'm pretty, she kept in contact with her husband, and then I think he went to go pick her up after that.
Okay. And were they still communicating? Z and she were still communicating?
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so he went to go pick her up. Do you know when that was?
Shortly after that, a few days, something like that.
Okay. A few days after Thanksgiving?
A few days after Thanksgiving, yeah.
Okay.
I think she got really jarred by that whole thing with Sandra Torres.
Okay.
Like I say, there was like a lot of dramatic shifts in her wording and the things that she would say after that.
Okay.
And that was it.
All right. And then tell me about Thanksgiving. Where did you spend Thanksgiving 2020?
Oh, I was there. We did Peggy's, and then I was at my parents for the rest of the day.
Was Chloe around for Thanksgiving 2020, or was she with her parents?
That was that day. That was Thanksgiving Day.
What was Thanksgiving Day?
The whole event on November 25th.
The 25th was Thanksgiving Day?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. I'm not 100% on that, but I'm pretty sure that was Thanksgiving Day. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it would have been after Thanksgiving that Chloe went to her parents.
That's correct.
All right.
Yes.
And then you said it was a couple of days maybe she was with her parents, and then Z went and got her, and she came back to the group?
She came back, yeah, she did.
Okay. And when she came back, what was her demeanor like?
Pretty much the same, really. I mean, she's a regular Kanani a lot of the time, even though at this point in time she had become kind of degraded. Like, she was like, her whole, like, air had become different. Like, she was, like, really, like, frustrated with herself. Like, she was just, like, frustrated with what's happening, and she was sad, you could tell. And then there was, like, this whole different air about her that I think, like I said, was part of the whole interaction with Sandra Torres, where she just became, I don't know, she just got this idea in her head about Nimsy after that. There was just like a lot of...
About protecting Nimsy?
Protecting Nimsy, yeah. Okay. And like the danger to the baby, that they're going to take the baby. All of these things that had never really come out of her before that I heard,
Okay.
And I mean, I wasn't with them like 24/7, but I was with them a lot, like a lot. So.
Okay. You said that she first sort of started having those types of, I don't know what you want to call them, episodes, paranoia, whatever it is, in September of 2020?
Well, no, it was before that, actually. It was really during the summer. Like, Z, I was talking to Z pretty regularly. We would just, talk about all kinds of stuff. And he spoke of his wives openly, with me, and how Kanani had really started, it was really in July when he began to, because I think it was in June that I met them at the river that day.
With her parents?
With her parents.
Okay.
And she was fine that day. Like, she was, behaving normally, providing excellent care for Nimsy, being an excellent mother. And, I mean, gosh, I just...
And let me ask you this. At any point, did you become aware of her getting any type of, like, counseling?
No.
Okay.
Definitely not.
What's that?
No.
Okay.
She did not.
Did you know about her doing anything on Zoom?
No.
Okay.
I did not know about that.
Okay.
Was she doing that? I don't know.
If you don't, I have to ask the question.
Okay,
so if you don't know, that's completely
I don't know.
fine.
I didn't know that. No.
Okay.
I didn't know.
And we already talked about kind of the group's views on drugs and sort of the holistic approach.
Yeah, Z did not want her to be institutionalized. That's for sure.
He did not want her to be institutionalized?
He did not want her to be institutionalized, probably for the same reason as like the institutionalization culture probably doesn't offer like, she's just surrounded by 3 or 4 people who really love her and care about her. And instead of just being a patient that gets doped up with medication and spoken to once a day for an hour by some doctor that she doesn't know, Z was really trying to do this in more of like a wholesome family way to offer Kanani healing.
When she was just her normal self, what was her relationship with Z? How did she interact with him? How did she treat him? What did you observe during this time?
It was like when Jennifer and I went to Florida, it's like there's like a lot of love there.
Talk to me about like Thanksgiving time, December. What was the nature of their relationship around that time?
I mean, sometimes she's around and it's the same. Like there's a very loving nature and a very there's like a lot of companionship, and between her and the other girls, like, I remember we were at my house right before, because they had found a house in Florida, because that's one of the things that Kanani was talking about, especially towards the end in October. She's like, we need to find a house. We need to find a house so I can be better, so I can find a place to be and just be in one place all the time, so I can be in this place and I can heal and I can get better.
Did she want a more stable lifestyle than traveling all over the place?
Not before, but no, I think she was just fine with it until like she started to really like degrade.
Okay.
You know, and then she realized, you know, she would come back from these episodes and we'd tell her what's happening, what had happened. She has like no memory of it. She's crying and being all like apologetic and, you know, like troubled by her own mind and like how little control she had.
She believed finding a house and putting down some roots somewhere would be beneficial for her?
Yeah, and that really started to come out in October. Like after we came back from Virginia Beach, I was letting them stay at my house, and she started to talk about that, even incoherently. She's like, we need to find a place. And so they had found a house in Florida that was for sale.
All right.
And they were going to go buy it and live there.
All right.
And Z had already like called about it, and it was in Florida, and we were moving there that day on December the 8th.
On December the 8th, y'all were headed from North Carolina to Florida to move into a house.
To move. We were moving them. I rented a U-Haul in my name for them. Okay. And they had all of their stuff packed up in the U-Haul, and they were moving to Florida. And we stopped by Jerry's house on the way down.
All right. So on December the 8th, how many days, if we start on December the 8th and we track backwards, how many days had you been with them? Had you been with them continuously from November 25th?
No, continuously since the middle of October when I went to go visit them.
Okay, so you spent every day with them?
Almost every day, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, they were staying at my house. Like I say, I went to Virginia Beach in October. In the middle of, I think I arrived there on like October 11th or something like that. I stayed there until after Halloween. So it was like the better part of a month, because I remember celebrating Halloween or walking around for Halloween down in Virginia Beach. And then we came back to Asheville, and they were staying at my house. So, you know, I'd come by like all the time. Yeah, okay. Sometimes I'd stay in the van, and I'd come and I'd walk in, and we'd talk about feelings in the morning, you know, and which I thought was great.
Okay.
And it was like a real camaraderie and like just like family style life there.
All right. And as it relates to sort of the efforts to assist Chloe, did she also believe against like drugs and alcohol or things like that?
Totally. I mean, she grew up, like I say, being, you know, using drugs by her own accord, by her own account.
Okay.
You know, from the time when she was like 9-10 years old, using cocaine every day, and like she's like very against drugs.
Did you have any knowledge during this period of time about her desire to try to utilize CBD?
Yes.
And what did you know about that?
So I found that out because she was looking for like some kind of medical assistance, and Z was just not having her be on prescription medication.
Okay.
Because, you know, and I agree with him in this regard that, you know, that because she would come back from these episodes, it's not like she was like this all the time. And this was a recently developing thing. So
and when you say it's not like she was like this all the time, what in terms of...
She wasn't psychotic, losing her mind, belligerent.
Well, in terms of quantifying how many episodes like that you saw or how often that would happen.
Right. Yeah. You know, I wasn't around them all the time at that point, but I know that it really started to get bad in July.
Okay.
So by the time September came around, I saw her behaving erratically. She struck Z for one of the first times she had ever struck her husband when I was there in September. But Z's perspective was like a more like natural homeopathic type thing where he didn't want to institutionalize her, and he didn't want her to be on drugs. You know, he wanted her to work through this and come to a healing on her own. And she was about that too, but she was also looking for, so they decided on CBD. Okay. They decided to try to use CBD, and Kanani had ordered some CBD offline.
She ordered it offline?
Yes, she did.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you said that they were both kind of about not medicating traditionally, but that they had explored other options and arrived at CBD.
That's right. To try to just give her some assistance. Okay.
And the CBD that she ordered offline, do you know anything about that?
I don't.
Okay.
I mean, I know she just ordered some CBD. She had been taking CBD, and that a package arrived.
From just like a traditional CBD? Maybe?
Yeah, just something online that she ordered.
All right.
Yep.
And at any time, did you provide her with anything in that regard?
I did. I had some CBD that I bought from a woman in Asheville, North Carolina, that I had purchased because my dad's cousin had cancer. He was using a Rife machine, and he had become cancer-free by using the Rife machine, and he was interested in taking some CBD. And so I bought some CBD from a woman I could tell you who it was if you want.
Was it a legitimate CBD manufacturer? Was it some shady,
no,
back alley? What was it?
No, definitely not. This is a woman who worked in the hemp industry.
Mm-hmm.
This is a product that was being sold on store shelves that she had in abundance. And so I bought some of it from her, but this is like a legal product that I bought from her.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in which state?
What's that?
What state?
In North Carolina.
In North Carolina. Okay.
Yes.
So it was a off-the-shelf, legally manufactured hemp
That's what
product.
I was told by this woman who works in the hemp industry.
Okay.
Yes.
And so you said you bought that for your
I
uncle?
bought that for my dad's cousin.
Your dad's cousin.
It would be my cousin too. It's his first cousin. My dad's first cousin.
And so you had some left over, or what was the situation?
No, I had some. I was taking some of it.
Okay, you took it.
Yeah, I did.
And what did you take it for?
I was taking it because I have shoulder injuries from jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
And I was trying to, and I had quit smoking weed at that point, and I had been without, I had been clean and sober off drugs for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I, and that was something that happened before I met Z. Like, I quit smoking cigarettes and doing all kinds of things, but before I even met these people, like I said, that was another attraction, that we had, like a commonality that we had, that we were both sober.
So the CBD that you purchased from the woman in the hemp industry that you subsequently gave to Kanani was CBD you had also personally used?
I had.
Okay.
Yeah, and I used it because I have I have a shoulder injury and a neck injury from jiu-jitsu, and I was trying to alleviate some of my pain.
Had you taken CBD before?
Yes, I had.
And anything special about this particular CBD?
No.
Okay.
I mean, it's fairly non-invasive. It's CBD.
Okay. And what is it about CBD that sort of comports with your views or beliefs about?
Well, I was just trying something. I was just trying to take it and just see if it offered me any relief. Because I had become really opposed to cannabis marijuana at that point in my life. Even though cannabis marijuana had been a part of my life for a while, but I had stopped using it and I completely turned against it, which I think is, I think it needs to be, I think there need to be stricter laws on marijuana, and it needs to go backwards on this whole legalization thing.
Well, for the jury that may not know, what's the difference between CBD and marijuana?
Okay, so the cannabis plant has, from my understanding of it, the cannabis plant has around 85 different cannabinoids found within it. And cannabis hemp is different from cannabis marijuana in that it's harvested for because it's abundant in CBD. And marijuana is like a hallucinogenic drug, which is heavy in THC. So this CBD that I gave to Z and Kanani, which I wouldn't have even suggested that, but they had already ordered CBD. They were already exploring this. And I was like, hey, I have this here. Would you like some of it? And they talked about it and they decided, yes, we will try this that you have. And so it was made from hemp, not marijuana. And it's like I say, it's a product that, that you can buy on the shelf. I bought it from a woman who works in the legal hemp industry in North Carolina.
Okay.
So.
All right. This is a good time for a lunch recess. So we're going to be in recess for lunch until 1 o'clock. Leave us your notepads.
All right, Mr. Spillers, I want to ask you, we were talking about the CBD.
Okay.
And I want to go back to that. I'm handing you State's Exhibit 87. Do you recognize what's in this photo?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what.
Is that?
Yeah, that's what I gave to them.
Okay. And does this truly and accurately reflect it in the manner you gave it to Chloe Driver?
Yeah, it's in a very small glass jar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your Honor, I'm going to tender State's 87.
Any objection? It's admitted.
All right. All right. And is this the CBD that we're referencing?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And was this the same sample of CBD that you had given to
My dad's cousin.
your dad's cousin?
Yeah.
And that you had used yourself?
Yeah,
Okay.
it is.
And then you just gave the remainder to...
I just had some with me that I was taking for my
Okay.
shoulder issues, for my shoulder pain.
All
and
right.
that's the jar that I had that I was just using personally. I had purchased this a year before.
Okay.
And I still had some left over, and I just gave the rest of what I had to them after they considered it. Like, I offered it, and they considered it, and like the next day they were like, yeah, we'll try it, because it was free.
Okay.
Instead of spending all their money, I just gave it to them.
All right. So she had ordered CBD offline,
right,
and then you offered this, and they talked about it and accepted it.
Yes.
Okay. In terms of administration of this, do you just eat it? How does that work?
Orally, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And were you a part of the discussions surrounding the CBD or the use of CBD?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I found out that they had come to these, that they had come to like an agreement, about using CBD to try to help Kanani to find some, without using pharmaceuticals. It seemed like a much softer and more organic approach to some kind of chemical alleviation for her lapses in what we will call sanity, if you will.
Was she interested in that approach?
Yes, she was.
Do you have any knowledge about her ever being involuntarily forced to take CBD?
Definitely not.
Okay.
I mean, it was her who ordered it.
Okay.
I mean, she had to convince Z to let her do that.
She had to convince Z to let her take
Yeah,
the CBD.
because it's like, he was trying to do this organically and like have her heal on her own.
Okay.
Because there was like I say, she kept coming back into or whatever you're going to call it, back into a place of mental clarity where she would apologize and not remember what she did, but he found it significant that she was, because she wasn't like, it's not like she was like she wasn't like clinical, it's not like she was like that all the time. This was just like something that had developed. Then I say, because of her past and postpartum, and who knows what else was contributing, to like these eruptions, and he was trying to heal her organically. So yeah, she had convinced him to allow her to use CBD, and he agreed.
Okay.
As an alternative, as a more organic and softer alternative to pharmaceuticals.
Okay. And you just used the expression, she wasn't like that all the time.
I mean, where she was like losing. I was just trying to make a clear and distinct difference between the woman who was a loving mother and the woman who would violently attack her husband.
Okay.
And the other women.
When she was her normal self, that
Yeah.
was with Z for years.
Yes.
Have you ever described her as being a Spitfire?
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was she strong-willed and spirited?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
And you said earlier that she asked you if you were an asshole who liked to eat animals. Was that?
Yeah, I mean, she's
demonstrative
kind of
her
snipey
personality?
sometimes, but that's not like, she wasn't like aggressive or violent. She was just kind of like stern, I guess you could say, and like curt and to the point.
Okay. Was she? Did she speak her mind?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. And amongst the three wives, who was the clear leader of the three?
Kanani, I feel like, but they were all like, I feel like Kanani was like the more like the more of the leader, I guess you could say. But those other girls, they were very vocal. Like, I mean, there was like all this interaction between them. It's not like Kanani was like commanding authority or or that she was like in charge of the other women. Let's not put it like that. It's not like she was like the boss over them or anything. But it was very clear that she was like the more like headstrong and like more iron-willed of the three, I guess you could say.
Did she like things her way?
I mean, doesn't everyone? It's like no, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that Kanani was like that. Like, she's like has to have it her way kind of girl.
Was she afraid to speak her mind?
Definitely not.
Okay.
I mean, that's like very much the opposite of that.
Okay. I want to talk to you about the traveling from North Carolina to Florida.
Sure.
And you indicated that there was an intention to...
We were moving, you're talking about December the 8th.
Yes.
Well,
but
yeah.
I want to talk about where you stopped en route.
Totally.
Do you have any knowledge about going to Chloe Driver's parents' house?
We did go to Kanani's parents on
Okay.
it was the night before that.
December the 7th?
I'm pretty sure it was the 7th, or maybe it was the 6th. like I say, these, you know, you're talking about like the differential between a day that I'm trying to remember. Was it the 6th or the 7th of 2020, 4 years ago? I can't remember.
Okay.
But it was not the 8th, because that's the day that we were traveling and Nimsy died.
And in terms of who was traveling and how many vehicles you had, what did that look like?
It was my van, and it was the U-Haul, and it was their SUV, I think. My head is itching. I can't remember if it was their SUV or their car, but I was driving the U-Haul, and one of the girls, I think Shayla, was driving my van, and then Z was riding with Kanani and Nimsy in the SUV. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember that.
And what about Gami?
I think she was with one of the others.
Okay.
Like these are details that escape me.
Okay.
You know.
But there were multiple vehicles.
Yeah, we were in it was. I know that my van was there.
Okay.
And I was driving the U-Haul.
Okay.
So, and then there was at least one more car. Maybe they had both cars. I can't remember this.
Okay. So 3 or 4 vehicles.
3 or
total?
4 vehicles. Yes.
Okay. And you know that Z and Kawani and Nimsy were all in one car?
Yes, they were.
Okay. And you drove the U-Haul by yourself?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did all of those vehicles go to Eric and Renee Driver's house on the way?
Yeah, they did, actually. We parked in the, they live in like a condo duplex type townhouse thing, and we drove the U-Haul up the hill to their house to load up all the Kawani stuff, and we left all the other cars in the visitor parking by the pool at the entrance.
Okay.
And Shaylee took a nap in my van.
All right.
While they were there.
And what was the purpose for stopping at Eric and Renee Driver's house?
To get the rest of Kawani's stuff so they could move to Florida, because they had found a place to live and be stationary and establish some kind of grounding, which she initiated this sequence, and we all supported that to try to help her find a place to heal, where she could really like be still and, you know, not have to deal with like all the stressors from the outside world. The Sandra Torres thing was obviously hugely traumatic to everyone, and so she wanted to find a place to live, and they found a place in Florida.
Did what stuff were you all retrieving from her parents' house?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I just pulled the U-Haul up, and
Okay.
they loaded it up. I didn't even like.
Okay.
I have no idea. I would say like personal belongings, probably like things that she needed.
And do you know if her
Clothes.
parents were there and they
They were
interacted
there.
with her?
They were there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That was the first time that was another time when I met Eric Driver. He came outside, and I saw Kyle Driver.
Who's
her
Kyle?
brother. Kyle's brother.
Her brother. Okay.
Yep.
All right. And anything eventful happened while you were at the driver's house?
Nope. It's pretty smooth. We just
How was
rolled up.
Kawani acting?
She was actually, you know, by this point she had become like her, even in her normal self, she was kind of like, you know, she's like really dealing with a lot of like mental health issues, you know, and it was really starting to like drive her down.
You described her earlier as like looking sad. Is
Sad.
Okay.
Yeah, just like, you know, like really needing to get like that, like needing some kind of like something, you know, like the stable place in Florida where they could go, and you know, and she was really looking forward to that, and everybody was, you know,
Okay.
like that was.
Do you know who made the decision to go to the driver's house to get Kawani's things? Was that something that she
Gosh, I
requested?
don't know.
You don't know? Okay, that's fine. How long were you all at the driver's residence?
Probably like an hour and a half or so.
All
You know,
right.
we just stopped in, picked up stuff. She had just been there after Thanksgiving, and then had come back to Z and her family, and with her sisters and her baby, and they had like, you know, things had like mended, and they were going to Florida, and Eric and Renee opened their house up, and Z was there talking to Eric. Like it was just like, you know, this is all after that. You know, this was December the 6th, right before Nimsy died.
Okay, so December the 6th, in interactions between Z and Kawani and her parents and her brothers there, did you observe anything that was abnormal?
Not at all.
Tension, conflict, anything like that?
Actually, not at all. Like
Okay.
it was just smooth.
All right.
Like Eric and Renee were, you know, they were there. They're like, here, you know, they opened their home. Z was talking to Eric. You know, he went inside, gathered their stuff with Kanani, and loaded it into the U-Haul.
At that time, was Kawani excited about going to Florida?
they were all very like eager to get to Florida, or like, you know, like, yeah, excited, I guess, you know, as excited as a person who's that kind of, who's like sad like that could be, I guess.
Okay.
But yeah, they were
Right.
they were all like ready to get to Florida and be stable, and they wanted to have she was talking about having a garden and growing food and doing, you know, some self-healing meditations and being stable and being away from stressors of the world, like, you know, just, you know, they had found a spot in the country, you know, that was kind of like a way, you know, to where, you know, she wouldn't have as many triggers to go into these.
Those were the things that she expressed she wanted?
Yeah, totally.
A garden and land and to be out in the country?
That's it.
Okay.
Yep.
Was Nimsy with her and Z in the group whenever they were there with Eric and Renee Driver?
Yes, she was.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you said you believe that was either the 6th or the 7th?
The 6th or the 7th, yes.
Okay. And then I want to talk about the 8th. You all went to Jerry's. Did you know Jerry already?
Yeah, I know Jerry.
Okay.
I had been to Jerry's house a couple times before. I'd spoken to him on the phone. It's kind of like one of those situations with Z. Like, I met Jerry. Jerry's a really interesting guy. He's intelligent, and he does like a podcast talk show that's like really, you know, it's like an interesting thing that he does. And so I had spoken to Jerry for hours on the phone. Like, I just called him up just to chat, you know, like I do with people that I meet that I'm interested in. Kind of the same thing when I first met Z, just the same thing. Like, I met Jerry, I liked him, I still like Jerry, you know, and so yeah, I knew Jerry, yes.
Okay.
I was just trying to give you just descriptive details into our...
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So you were familiar with his home. You come to Cherokee County with everybody we've already discussed, right?
Yes,
Okay.
on the 8th.
On the 8th.
And I had been there before several times.
Okay.
Yeah.
So any idea what time you arrived at the house?
Sometime in the afternoon, I'd say, like, gosh, you know, I don't know what time that was. Like, what time was that? Maybe like noon or 11? Gosh, you're, like I say, these are... Because we woken up early that morning and gone to the 12 tribes.
And what is the 12 tribes?
12 tribes is like a quasi-Jewish, quasi-Christian cult of culture of individuals who, you know, they have like a long-standing foundation of devotees, and they have like delis and stuff like that, and they have like a minha, you know, where they sing and dance in the morning and stuff like that. And
so you all went there that morning?
We went there that morning.
Okay. And did Kuwani participate in that?
Well, we were all there. I mean, participate. Okay. We just sat there, you know.
You said there was singing and dancing.
Yeah,
and
no,
stuff.
she wasn't doing that. Neither did we.
Okay.
But yeah.
What were you all doing?
Just sitting there.
Okay. Were you communicating?
We spoke to each other, or yeah, of course.
Okay.
I mean,
anything about her behavior on that day at 12 Tribes that was she normal, Kuwani?
Yes, she was.
Okay. Was she in a bad mood, good spirits, just?
It seemed like she was pretty normal. Like I say, she was pretty disheartened overall in general at that point, like pretty worn down and just tired of dealing with the mental illness that was plaguing her. I'll call it that.
Okay.
But during the 12 tribes, she was, just normal Kuwani. She did have an episode, an outburst at Whole Foods later that day, where she would just have panic attacks and start screaming, and, you know, like, she was pretty much in the car while that was happening. I knew it was happening, but I didn't really see it.
Okay.
Like she had gotten like overstimulated on the road or something like that.
Okay.
And some kind of trigger.
Were you interviewed by law enforcement in this case back in December?
Yeah, I was that day. That's
Okay.
the only thing. Yeah.
And is it fair to say that everybody kind of described her as acting like herself on the 8th?
For the most part, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that she was having like a little bit of a freak out, you know, episode in the car, and but that was it at Whole Foods.
When you say freak out episode,
yes,
you know, in the context of what we've already discussed about her being a little bit of a spitfire and speaking her mind, when you say freak out episode,
I'm talking like on a whole other level from. But go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Is it something you observed? The
What do you
freak out episode you're talking about. Did you see that?
On the 8th?
Yes.
Actually, I knew it was happening. I knew that she was having a hard time because Z was just like, Z got out of the car and he was like, you know, Kawani's like, needs some space right now.
Okay.
But no, I didn't actually witness that.
Okay, so let's just talk about the stuff you actually saw.
Okay.
There was an incident with her in the car on that day where he said she needs some space.
Right, and so
Okay.
I just went into Whole Foods by myself, and
Okay.
I needed some food. So I went into Whole Foods, got some food, came back out, got in the car, and then we took back on the road to Jerry's.
Okay, and did he give her some space whenever he said she needs some space? Did everybody give her some space?
Oh no, I think he was like doing what he normally does and talking to her and trying to, you know, like guiding her back to, you know,
Calming her down?
trying to get her to come back to him, you know, in like
Okay.
a place of like normalcy, like, you know,
Okay.
wholeness.
You don't know what that conflict was about? You didn't see her?
No, I
Okay.
don't. But I mean, so I could only make assumptions.
Okay, we don't
So.
want you to do that.
Yep.
So on the 8th, when you get to Jerry's house, you said it was around the noontime hour. There's at least 3 or 4 cars and the group of you. What happened when you got there? Where did all of the women go?
Okay, so everybody went into the house,
Mm-hmm.
except for me. I stayed out in my van and I took a nap.
Okay. And did you assist in moving any of the stuff out of the house?
No, I did not.
Okay. And at what point did you wake up from your nap?
I don't know what time that was.
Okay.
I have no idea.
Is there anything that awoke you?
Sometime, yeah, Z woke me.
Okay. And
Yeah.
tell me about that.
Well, I was sleeping in my van, and Z was like, "Hey, I got all this stuff," because I wanted to take a nap, and he was cool with that, and he was loading up all of his stuff, and he got all of his stuff loaded. And he said, "Hey, go ahead and wake up," and I woke up, and I got up, and I was standing in the driveway, and Jerry was in the garage, and Shaylee and Gamliana and I were all standing in the driveway.
Okay.
Yeah,
And what happened next?
I heard Z scream.
Okay. And
Like
what did
this.
you hear him scream?
No, just like this, like at the like this terrified, painful scream, like just like a scream, like it was like shocking, you know. Like Z doesn't really scream like that. That's the only time I've ever heard him express any sound that even closely resembled that. It was
Is he typically quiet?
No, he just doesn't. You know, I mean, the trauma, the pain, it was just a scream of utter, just so much pain was in his voice. And so I didn't even know what had happened. I had no idea what had happened. But I was outside and I told Gami, I was like, "You need to call 911 right now." And so she started calling 911 and I ran inside the house. Shayla was already running back in the house and so did Jerry
Okay.
when we heard him scream like that.
You
This is how I remember. Maybe Jerry wasn't standing outside. I feel like these details are probably more or less irrelevant, but at one point Jerry was standing outside. I don't know if Jerry was still in the garage right there at the house when I heard Z scream, but Gami and I definitely were. And I told her to call the cops.
Okay.
To call 911 because something was definitely wrong. Like I had no idea what had happened, but it was a scream of pain and like something like bad, you know, like
You previously testified that you're not a call the cops kind of guy, and you're
So-
obviously sitting here wearing orange.
That's
so, tell me what about what you heard made your first instinct be call 911?
You know, I can't really remember. I don't remember. I just remember hearing the scream and perhaps like I can't even remember what happened in between there. It's like it's been so long. It's like I don't know exactly what the sequence of events was, but something compelled me. I said, "Gami, you need to call 911 right now." And she did.
Okay.
And I ran inside and then I ran upstairs because that's where the scream was coming from. And then I walked into this like really horrible thing.
Okay. What happened when you walked into the room?
I walked into the room and there was blood everywhere. And Z was, I'm going to talk through this one. Z was trying to give Nimsi like mouth to mouth. Like she had obviously had some laceration wounds to her neck, and there was like blood everywhere. And Kawani was laying on the ground, and She had tried to kill herself by stabbing herself in the chest and in the throat, and she was bleeding profusely. And so I was just went into shock, basically. Like, I have very little or no experience, especially with a child. Like, I mean, I've witnessed a couple things, but not like this. And so Z's like giving his daughter mouth to mouth, trying to like breathe some life back into her, and she's like gurgling her last breath, and Kanani's laying on the floor bleeding profusely.
Was Nimsi still alive when you went into the room?
She was on her way out.
Okay.
Like, she was gurgling, but she wasn't moving, and she looked very not alive.
Okay. And tell me about your interaction with Kanani, sorry.
I went to the ground, and Z said, keep pressure on the wounds. And so I did. I went down and I kept pressure on the wounds, and I tried to just stop them from bleeding. I was using my sweatshirt and my hands to put pressure on the wound that was on her chest and on her neck until the paramedics got there.
Okay. And how was Kanani reacting to you? Was she saying anything or doing anything?
She was saying that she wanted to see Nimsi one more time, and she was actually trying to push me away. She was, you know what, earlier I said there was only one time when I touched Kanani, but that was the second time, when I was trying to save her life. I was holding pressure on the wound, and she had blood all over her hands, and she was pushing my face away, telling me, stop, I'm supposed to die, and I wanted to see, and then she was like trying to lean up to see Nimsi one more time, but I held her down because I thought that, you know, I just didn't want her to lose any more blood, because there was blood everywhere and all over me and all over our clothes and all over the floor and the bed. It was like a massacre, and I just wanted to try to save her life. So I held her down and kept pressure on the wounds for probably about 2 minutes, because the paramedics came really fast.
Okay. So she told you to stop. She tried to push you away.
Yeah.
She said, I'm supposed to die, and that she wanted to see Nimsi one last time.
Yes.
Is that what you recall?
Yes.
Okay. And you indicated that you were attempting to save her life, and that he was attempting to save Hannah's life.
Yeah, he was.
Did you care about Kanani and Hannah?
Of course.
Do you still care about them?
Yes.
Okay. And after this happened, did you maintain a relationship with Kanani?
Actually, yeah.
After she was arrested, did you all continue to communicate with her?
Yeah, she called from inside jail a lot.
Okay.
And we had a chance to speak a couple times. Yeah.
Okay. And do you know for how long she maintained a relationship with you and Z and the other women after she was arrested for murdering Hannah?
Gosh, I can't remember. I have no idea.
Okay.
A while, more than a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And were you a part of some of those phone conversations?
I was, yeah.
And what was the tone of those phone conversations?
Pretty, like, mellow, really. Like, just, you know, she's in jail, and we were talking to her and just reminding her that we love her, and that even though this was like a horrible thing, and we forgive her, and we know that that wasn't her that did that. And we still love her and care about her, and we forgive her for that, because we know that she would never do that.
And did she continue to express love for all of you?
Yes, she did.
Okay. And have you maintained contact and stayed in contact with Z?
Yeah.
Okay. And have you all discussed that, you know, you still care about Kanani and you don't want anything bad to happen to her?
That's right.
Okay. And have you discussed that it is your desire that she go to a mental hospital and not be in state custody?
I mean, honestly, when it comes to that, I feel like my opinion is that this woman has suffered enough, you know, with all of her, you know, I can't imagine having to deal with knowing that something that you lost control of your own mind to the point to where you know, killed your own daughter. Like, women don't kill their babies. Like, that's really rare, you know? And when you do see it, it's usually a case of, like, the child is unwanted. You know, that's not what this was. This was not an unwanted child. This was some kind of deep thing being expressed through Kanani. that started. Like I say, the trauma that fractured her, I think, began when she was a child, and Z did what he could to help her with that, and so did all of us, and it ended up being this really horrific thing. And I do think that basically, like, I know that, I mean, I just don't think that prison is the place for her. No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't think that she's gonna. I think that she's just gonna degrade, and these prisons are horrible, you know, and they're just like.
Have you stated previously that you think she suffered enough and that you all believe she needs to be free in society?
I mean, that's a question mark. Like, free in society, I think that she should be. I think that it should be acknowledged that in the term of what we'll call, not guilty due to insanity. It's like you hear about people using this as a cop-out plea, and this is actually like one real one,
okay.
you know?
And we've discussed that you don't know what the law in Georgia is, right?
I don't. I mean, I'm not trying. I'm just trying to speak as as much familiarity with it as I have.
And my question is whether you have stated that you think she suffered enough and that she should be free.
Okay, I think that she has suffered enough. Do I think that she needs to be immediately free? I don't know. Maybe. I think that she could be, you know? I mean, I don't think that she's a harm to anyone. I don't think that she's a harm to society, and I don't think that she's a harm to herself. But maybe she is. Maybe she does need to be institutionalized. You know, I think that should be determined by a professional.
When's the last time you spoke to her?
Gosh, it was a while ago. Like a couple years ago, you know? I don't know. I mean, do I personally feel like Kanani should be free? Yeah, but maybe not. But maybe I'm wrong. You know, like I say, I think that should be. I do personally feel that.
Okay.
And you have to understand, like, I have zero toleration for abuse of children. I think that the laws aren't strict enough on those who abuse children and, you know, individuals. If it is so the case that Kanani was abused as a child, then her abusers should be brought to justice. And I don't think there should be a statute of limitations on that.
Did you ever tell Detective Cruz in the investigation of this case that woman chose to do what she did today? She took those actions. She made those choices.
I don't remember saying that, no.
You don't remember saying that?
No.
And the person that stabbed Nimsi to death, do you see her in this courtroom?
From what I understand, I didn't see her do it, but Kanani's sitting right here in this room.
Okay.
Yeah, that's her.
Over here?
Yep, that's her.
I don't have any other questions at this time.
All right, cross-examination.
Yeah, just making sure it's not a password I needed to do. Thank you. All right, good afternoon, Mr. Spillers.
Hey.
Nice to talk to you again. You and I first spoke, I think that was Friday or Saturday while you were at the jail by a Zoom call. Is that correct?
Yeah, we sure did.
Other than that conversation, we've never talked before.
No, we had not.
You never reached out to us to try to speak to us in any way about this case.
Actually, I have.
Did you?
Yeah, I've called several times. I've called your office. I've left messages for you
Okay.
over the past few months.
While you were in custody?
Yeah, I was in custody.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Apologize if I didn't get those messages.
Okay. Yeah, I probably called you half a dozen times. I've left messages with your secretary. I was told that you were the person that I needed, the individual that I needed to talk to probably like 4 months ago. I've been locked up since July, and I have called you many times trying to get in touch with you to reach out and just let you know that I'm here to get to speak my perspective.
Okay. But before Saturday, or when we talked by Zoom
No,
at the jail,
this
we
is
had
the
never
first time we've
spoken
spoken.
before.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right.
Okay. We had never talked at one point about what your anticipated testimony was going to be today. Before
Absolutely
Saturday.
not. No, your questions for me on Saturday are mostly in the nature of my relationship with the group. We only talked for 30 minutes.
Right.
I mean, I've been on the stand now for 2.5 hours.
Yes, sir.
You know?
Yes,
So,
sir. And I am going to talk a little bit more about your relationship to the group, just to flesh some of that out. Okay.
Let's do it.
But I'm going to start with December the 8th. I know,
Okay.
I know that's a tough day for you. I've seen the emotion on your face about what happened that day.
I care deeply about Kanani
Yeah.
and that baby, too.
Yeah. I just want to understand a couple of things. When you came into the room at first, Z was already in the room, right?
Yes, he was.
And when you came in, Z was attempting to resuscitate and deal with Hannah, correct?
Yes.
When you first approached Kawani, I'm going to call her Kawani because that's what you call her. I'm
Sure.
going to try to keep that consistent. When you first approached her, was the knife still in her chest?
No.
Or was she holding that in her hand? Or
It was
where,
on the
where
floor.
was the knife?
It was on the floor.
Okay, so the knife was already on the floor beside her.
Yeah.
You didn't do anything to touch or move that knife when you walked in, when you came into the room.
Nope.
Okay. And you said that she was saying that she wanted to see her baby. She was moving up to see Nimsy, correct?
Yes.
And she said to you, "I'm supposed to die. I'm supposed to die." That's what she was telling you.
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall when she was laying there on the floor? Do you recall her reaching out to Nimsy with her right hand?
It's really hard to know. I don't. I remember her like pushing my face away, like she was trying to get me to stop. Like she like wanted me to stop trying to like put pressure on the wounds. You know.
Was she also trying to get to the child? Did you think?
No, I don't even think she could get up at that point. Like she said very clearly, I can't even see. Like she says, I can barely move. I can't see. I would just want to see her one last time. And I told her she needed to be still because she's bleeding profusely. And the EMS people need to get here.
Okay. I'm not going to make you watch the body cam videos from the officers that came into the scene. The jury's already seen those in this
Okay.
case. If I tell you that one of the prior officers in this case testified that Kawani was reaching out and holding Nimsy's hand, do you have any reason to dispute that could have happened that morning?
Well, it couldn't have been that she was touching her because there's too much distance between them.
Okay.
Like there was too much distance there.
Okay.
Like the baby was on the bed, and Z was trying to like breathe into her because she was gurgling blood and there was blood everywhere.
But if an officer says that he saw that, you don't have any reason to dispute what that officer would
I
say.
will dispute that.
Okay.
I'll 100% dispute that.
Okay. Have you ever seen the body cam video in this case?
No, I haven't.
Okay. All right. Let me get you back to.
So you're saying, let's be clear one more time. You're saying that Kawani's body was touching Nimsy's body, and that you're saying that if an officer said that, would I dispute it?
I'm not asking you if their bodies were touching each other. I'm asking you if you recall her reaching out and touching her with her arm, with her right hand.
Yes, that's what you're saying.
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying, touching the baby with her hand.
Yeah.
No, that's impossible. There was too much distance between them.
Okay. All right.
There's no way that she could have been touching the baby.
Okay. Now, you did say in response to some questions there by Ms. Gropper that she was asking you about what you thought should happen to Kawani from this case.
Sure.
You understand that what your belief is about that doesn't truly mean a lot. The jury gets to decide that, correct?
Sure, but I mean, I feel like it's a fair question.
Sure. Because you
Yeah.
saw her consistently for about 5 or 6 months.
Yeah.
And you have testified to us pretty extensively about a significant change in her mental state from when you first met her in April or May of 2020 until December of 2020, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Your testimony is, and I think I wrote this down right, you know that wasn't her that did that.
Yeah.
You know that wasn't Chloe Driver that did this, right?
Yes.
You know that because everything that you ever saw her do with that child was what you would expect for a loving mother, right? You know that because of what you saw in that child's eyes and face when that child saw her mother, right?
Yes.
You described her earlier in your testimony that the child was bright and full of life, right?
Yes.
And she got that personality. She got that as a reflection from the treatment she got from her mother.
From the love of her parents.
Yeah, Z too, right?
Z too.
But from her mother.
Yeah.
You said that her mother was particularly the one responsible for most of the day-to-day motherly things with the child, changing the diapers, right?
Yeah, I mean, Z changed some diapers too, obviously, but yeah, she was.
But she breastfed this child
Yes,
every
she
time,
did.
right? They did not believe in bottle feeding or
No,
formula.
she breastfed her child.
Right.
Yes, she did.
So she was up all night feeding the child when the child needed to be fed,
She was
right?
an excellent mother. I've already said that.
Yeah. So you know,
She loved her baby.
you know from being with her that, as you just said, there's no good reason why a mother would ever kill her child. You know in this case that there was no good reason why she would ever kill her child, right?
No.
Okay. So just taking you back to May when you first met her, the first time that you saw and understood the dynamic of this group relationship that Z was in.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you had met him previously in Asheville, and you talked about the trust and that, you didn't really understand the group dynamic at that point in time.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. It was, that's kind of hard to, that's why I was so interested in their group and in their family. And so was Jennifer, this girl I was with at the time. And, it's, you can talk to someone, but you need to see that type of social interaction in person to gain.
You'd never had an experience relationship-wise like that, right? You never had a polygamous plurality relationship.
I've had multiple women that I've balanced. I've done that my whole life, really. Had multiple girlfriends, if you will. But no, I had never taken the time to introduce them to each other and be like, hey, we're a family now. I'm going to actually be devoted to you as a husband and show you that level of commitment and care and love and appreciation and all these things. Even though I was never really I always showed those things to the women in my life, but never to the level of calling them my wife.
Right.
So like I say, when I heard that, I thought it was very interesting because it was kind of what I had always done anyway with plurality in women, but actually having the intimacy and the fulfillment of having a wife, which I had always had missing from my life and I really wanted. But I never wanted to just settle for one woman, and Z kind of seemed, it was just like, it just like a light clicked on in my head. I was like, so you have multiple wives. That's how you do that. Okay.
And like I said, you never had that relationship with multiple women in a wife type setting.
No,
right?
sir.
Right.
I have not.
So you were curious as to how that existed.
Yes, sir.
And whether or not these people all got along with each other.
Right.
Was the relationship built towards each other, were there infighting amongst some of them, right?
Yeah.
And when you first met them in May, you found that everything was, they all agreed. They got together. They got along.
They
Everybody
really
worked
did.
together, right?
Yeah, it was beautiful. I was inspired by it. And even when we left, I told Jennifer, I was like, I'm about to change my perspective on,
Let me show you. We're going to mark this as Defendant's Exhibit 1, Judge. This is a photograph, I believe, that was taken off of Kanani's phone by law enforcement. You see that photograph on your screen there, sir?
yeah.
Do you recall an instance like that in May, June at the beach?
I mean, that was pretty much like their life. Look at how happy Kanani is. Look at her face. Look at the baby. These were just happy people, just living their lives.
Does that seem to be a fair and accurate reflection of things that you exhibited with them at that time in May?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And again, Judge, let me show you. We'll call this one Defendant's Exhibit 2, and I'm going to see if I can.
There's Kanani holding and feeding her baby on the beach.
Zoom
Look at
in
her
on
face,
that and make it a little bigger. Appears in that photograph she's actually breastfeeding the child. Is that
Yeah.
clear?
Yeah.
Same photograph, time frame. They're on the beach, obviously. Does that appear to be a representation of what they would have been like in May or June of that year?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, when I left, I told Jen, I'm like, I'm doing this now. I'm going to have multiple wives one day. And she was like, I was like, so what do you think about that? She's like, actually, she was like, okay. She was like, so I told her, I'm like, I'm gonna bring some other women into like this relationship, because she was living with me at the time. Even though I told her, you know, and I was very clear about, you know, that it was more of like an open type of relationship, you know, that I was not like fully committed to her, that I wouldn't see other women. But she wasn't like fully committed to me either. It was more like an open relationship, kind of that. We were both okay with that circumstance.
Yeah.
We did, even though we did live together.
Okay.
And I told her, I was like, man, we should move another girl in. And she's like, if it could work like that, then okay, you know. Like, this is a woman who 24 hours before, she's like, I don't know about this. We have to go like see these people and see how this works. To, you know, we get down there and we see. She's like, okay.
That
She's
ultimately did not work out though with you and Jennifer.
No, it did.
Right.
You know, that's a whole different story.
Okay.
So,
Judge, I will move to tender defendants exhibits 1 and 2 at this time.
Any objection?
No objection.
Very
but
good.
yeah, Jen said, you know, if it could be like that, if it could be the way that they are with each other, and they're not like jealous, fighting, bickering little women, you know, who have these, you know, like all of this stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like it's like the things that you would expect, like the jealousy and fighting and bickering between
Yes.
women. It was not there.
Okay.
And we stayed for a week, and we saw them in and out. And you know, like when you're around somebody for a week straight, like we were really observant of them. So yeah, I mean, I can't say enough about how their family was just working in this beautiful kind of way.
All right. And then your next interaction with them together was roughly in September when you went to Connecticut.
Well, I saw them a couple times. Like I say, I remember seeing them. Saw Z in Asheville. I met her for lunch at the 12 Tribes one time over the summer. I met Kanani and her parents at the river one day in June. Yeah.
But the next extended time that you spent with them was September up at Z's parents' house.
Yeah,
right?
I need to use this real quick. My nose. Yes, the next time I was with them extensively was in September at Z's parents' house, and Mike and Michelle Joyce's house in Bristol, Connecticut.
I'm showing you now.
I'm sorry. I'm going to object to publishing all the exhibits before they've been admitted. I don't know what else he intends to get into. The state's previously provided an exhaustive list of all of our exhibits, but I have no idea what he has on there.
It's just photographs of her and the child during the time frame that we're talking
we just
about.
review whatever he's seeking to admit before we publish it to the jury.
I just don't have them printed out. They're just
It's the same ones that were used during opening.
Oh, okay. No objection to those.
All right. So that's, you withdrew your objection?
I withdraw my objection if
All
they're
right.
the same ones during opening.
All right.
this photograph, Mr. Spillers, I believe, was taken in August, so maybe slightly before your visit with them in September. But does that seem to accurately reflect how you would have seen Kanani and Nimsy at that period of time?
Yes.
Okay. Judge, I'll mark that as this defendant's exhibit 3, and we'll move to tender that, I guess, as well.
No objection.
It's admitted.
And then in September, when you were in Connecticut, you were there for about 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And I think you said that you stayed in your van for the most part. You slept in your van while you were there.
Yeah.
Kanani, Z, Nimsy were in his parents' home.
Yeah.
Right. And at that point in time, his parents knew her, knew the other women that were involved, right? They were well aware of the relationships that he had.
Yes, they were.
Okay. Did he ever talk to you about a time in which he took Kanani back to his house in Connecticut before the child was born, when they first met, and he had her living in his parents' basement?
Yeah, I do remember him talking about that, like briefly, like that's how they met or something like that. That's when they first met.
You recall him telling you that he kept her in the basement because he didn't want his parents to know about her at that time, and he
No.
took food down there to her?
Definitely not. And they definitely knew that she was there. That's ridiculous.
Okay, this would have been not September of 2020. I'm talking about before that.
Oh,
when
yeah.
they
But I
first
mean,
met.
dude, Michelle Joyce is not the kind of lady who has somebody in her house and doesn't know about it. That's impossible.
Okay.
So, you know, like, that's just not our thing.
Okay.
You know, like the idea that, you know, that they didn't know that he was keeping someone in her house, like, yeah, right. Have you met her?
I have not.
Okay, well then you would know. Like, there's no way that's like,
Okay.
yeah. But no, I never heard him talk about that. But that just strikes me as like, if you knew the Joyce family, like,
You don't think that would have happened?
I don't think that's possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in September,
Just-
though, in Connecticut, your testimony is that you begin to see her, a change in her personality, a change in her.
Yeah, a radical
self.
change.
Yeah.
You know, she struck Z when I was there. And that was just like so, like, you know, just out of character. Like,
This is when these episodes were starting in which she would basically zone out or be in a catatonic type state.
definitely.
Is that right?
Yes.
When she was in these states, she would come out of them and not have any recollection of what just happened. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Um,
And I witnessed this many times.
Yes.
Especially because it developed even more when into October and through November, it was severe. I've never seen anything like it.
Was she telling you the type of things that she was hearing or seeing during these delusional spells? Would she tell you that she was hearing voices?
Well, not really like that. No, she was more expressing it as just like this, like aggressive, manic, like thing. You know, she would talk about all kinds of stuff, but you know, it was like really hard to and I was listening attentively and with care and respect for Kanani when she was expressing these things. And you know, it's like certain things that she would say kind of made sense sometimes. You know, like she would talk about like gosh, I can't even remember these things specifically. Like she would talk about like evil in the world and like, you know, like which there is a lot of evil in the world.
Sure.
You know, so it's not like everything that she said, but some of the things that she was saying were completely like.
But she was expressing to you that this was evil that she felt like was directed at her, right?
Definitely.
Not something that she was just talking about.
But just like an ambivalent force in the room as well, too.
Yeah.
Like not just like an indirect, like just the presence of evil.
Yeah, she sensed this.
Yes.
It's not like she was mad at the war in Israel or something. She was feeling a presence of a body or a presence of an entity that was coming towards her or directed towards her, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, she was.
This was so profound to you when you saw her in September and such a difference in how she was in May. You recall talking to Z about this and telling him that, you know, she needed to get some help?
Yeah, I did actually. I was like, dude, you know, I don't know, but I mean, I was trying to say like maybe she should go to an institution or something like that. But at the same time, I've never been to one of these institutions.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, and Z has a lot of familiarity with these things.
You said you've told us in your conversation we had with you Saturday, your sister has some
Yeah,
relation to social work, right?
My sister has her master's degree in social work and behavioral sciences, and she works as a counselor. And you know, I have a very close relationship with my sister, so we talk about these things. And I pride myself in being an intellectual and having the ability for divergent thinking and to, you know, gain objective understanding for concepts rather quickly. You know, so I've always excelled and been in like, you know, the top of my class kind of guy. So I speak with Chelsea. My sister's name is Chelsea. I speak with Chelsea, and I've spoken with her about these things. And you know, we spoke a lot about Kanani when this was happening with her.
And I'm not going to hold you to an expert in psychology by any means or psychiatric issues, but you believed, and I think you even told Detective Cruz this in your interview, that you believed that in fact, Kanani was suffering from specific disorders such as bipolar or schizophrenia, that type of thing, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I do think that. I do think that some kind of individual could, but it's like these things came on very suddenly. So it's like I was telling the state earlier in my testimony, and that's why I didn't really push it too far when Z said that he didn't want her to be institutionalized, because this wasn't like how she was all the time. So so perhaps I'm incorrect, because to diagnose somebody with schizophrenia means that they have schizophrenia, not that they have schizophrenic-like episodes. Do you understand the differential here? It's like, that's how I'm viewing it now. And honestly, at that time, I had just witnessed Nimsy breathe her last breaths, and I'm trying to save Kanani's life. So, it's like I don't even really remember that interview with Tiana Cruz myself. That there was like a lot of trauma.
You were still in shock to some degree about what you just.
I'm still
gone through,
traumatized
right?
by this to this day.
Yeah.
Like this is like a huge thing for me to deal with.
But Z's response to you reaching out to him about what you were seeing and your concerns, he did not want her treated.
He didn't want to put her. Well, his expressions were very clear. He didn't want to put her in an institution where she would get less care and less time and consideration than what she was getting from him and from her sisters.
He didn't want pharmaceuticals.
And he
for
didn't
her.
want her to become some brain dead pharmaceutical girl, And
he didn't want that for Kanani, but he also didn't want that for Nimsy, right?
Thank you. Yes, that's where I was going. Like,
Yeah.
she's breastfeeding this baby,
Yeah.
and he didn't want that, and he didn't want her to be institutionalized because she has this. He was trying to keep their family together, man. And I respected him for that, and I respected him for trying to do it organically and without drugs.
So let's talk a little bit about this CBD here.
Let's do it.
That was State's Exhibit 87. I think when you testified earlier, I thought you testified that you had bought that from a store, but maybe I misunderstood. You got it from a friend of yours. Who
I
had
bought it from
right?
an individual, a woman who's in her 50s, who works in the CBD industry.
Is her name Kylie Cross?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So this appears like in this jar, it appears to be something that was homemade or manufactured by someone and put in that substance. Is
So,
that fair?
I'll tell you what I was told.
Okay.
I was told that was manufactured in a large quantity, and that it was processed in a legal type circumstance, and that it was legal to be sold in stores, but it was excess that she had access to.
Okay. But you don't, that's how you got it, right? In that jar.
That's exactly how I got
You
it.
were told what it was. You were told it was CBD, but other than that, you have no reason to understand that it's CBD or anything else, correct?
I'm just going by what I was told, yes.
Okay. And you had used some of that yourself.
Yes, sir.
And I think your testimony earlier was you didn't think that it had much of a effect on you.
It really didn't.
Using it for your shoulder, I think.
Yeah, I got a bad. I have a bad neck and a bad rib. I did jiu-jitsu for years and years.
And it didn't really give you any relief.
It did in a way. It did a little bit, but I discontinued my use of CBD.
You didn't have any side effects from it, such as delusions or paranoia or concerns like that, right?
No, sir, I did not.
Okay. But you definitely saw what you believe was an increase in paranoia and delusions from Kanani that occurred at the time she was taking this substance as well,
Yes,
right?
sir, I did.
Did you believe that the CBD or whatever this stuff was causing her symptoms to get worse?
Not at first. When she first started taking it, I gave it to him in September. And then that only progressed until, that was way later, and she was the one who was saying that. Because I don't, her delusions, it was it's hard for me to differentiate, was this actually, but she was the one who started saying that.
She was telling you that she was having concerns that this substance was causing.
She was telling us, and then Z started to pull it back and stop giving it to her.
Okay. Ultimately, and you talked a little bit about this earlier, the nature of this relationship and the control, and I don't mean control in a necessarily in a negative way, but the patriarchal structure of this family, right?
Yes, sir.
Ultimately, Z had the final decision about whatever was happening in his family, right?
I mean, yeah, for the most part, but these women were heard. You know, it's not like these were not oppressed,
Sure. I mean,
silenced women, and by no means. In fact, very much the opposite. Like I say, you know, he wakes up every day. It's like we want to talk. He wants them to talk. They were encouraged to speak. They were encouraged to speak their minds. They were encouraged to tell how they were feeling, you know, so he could be a better man.
But if Z felt like the CBD was something he wanted to have her use, he would be the one to say, let's use that,
Well,
right?
he was vehemently opposed to it at first, but she talked him into it.
And he did agree to it.
And
though,
he
right?
finally agreed to
Okay.
it. Yeah.
But if he had not agreed to that, she would not have been able to use it.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the nature of a relationship,
Yeah.
you know, unless two people are in agreement. Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I don't think that he would have, just like he didn't want her to use pharmaceuticals, you know. Like I said, she's breastfeeding a child. and
Did
she's-
you ever tell him that he needed to stop giving her the CBD?
No, I did not.
Never.
No, I didn't.
Okay. Now again, this time frame of September when you're in Connecticut, October when you're in Virginia with them, despite the concerns you're seeing for her declining mental state, her treatment of Hannah was still 100% top-notch motherly
It
treatment.
really was.
Right?
Like, it really was. Yeah, I mean, there were a couple times where, you know, she was so out of it and having like these like episodes of panic and discomfort and violent aggression, you know, where, you know, I felt like she wasn't her best self as far as like giving Hannah all of the attention that the child needed, but that was uncommon. You know, that was only like a few times because, you know, it's like when she's manic and like screaming and pulling her hair out, you know, it's like there's a baby in the room. Like
When she was in that state, she obviously couldn't be a good mother.
there were a couple
to the
times where
child, right?
I had to hold the baby because, you know, she was like, Z was like, here, hold the baby, you know, like because Kawani's like becoming aggressive and violent and screaming at the top of her lungs in public places, and you know,
But
like,
nothing that she ever did during those times, nothing that happened while she was in those delusional states or those paranoia states, nothing she did was ever violent, aggressive, or harmful to Lindsay.
no, very much the opposite.
Okay.
Still,
All right. Now, when you were in North Carolina, this is, I guess, late October into November, when you got back to North Carolina where you live, right?
yeah,
Candler. That's not, it's like a suburb of Asheville, is that right?
yes.
Peggy, how far does Peggy live from you?
In Candler,
Yes.
to South Asheville, it's like 20 minutes.
Okay, but your house from Peggy's house is same distance, or
What do you mean?
where you live versus where Peggy lives? How far apart do y'all live?
20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Peggy lives in South Asheville,
Okay.
off Overlook Road.
Okay.
I live in Candler, 41 Oakdale was my address.
Okay.
And I would say it'd take, 15, 20 minutes to get over to South Asheville.
So when y'all were in North Carolina, was the rest of the group primarily living at Peggy's apartment with her, or were they
Actually,
staying in both places?
Yeah, basically like both places, but I let my house out to them. I let them stay at my place.
Okay.
When we came back from Virginia Beach, they stayed at Peggy's for a little while, and then Z asked me, and we stayed there. And then Gamliana started doing the dark therapy there at my house. So at that point, they were staying at Peggy's, and that's where she was during the events that happened on November 25th.
Yeah.
And that's why she wasn't there, because she was doing a dark therapy, like I say, for her own pursuit of a higher vibrational frequency.
We'll come back to that November 25th incident in just a minute.
Okay.
But at that point in time, they were staying at Peggy's house. Is that
Yes.
fair to say? Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about the group dynamic and some of the stuff that we're practicing. And you talked on this earlier. This was a patriarchal driven dynamic, right?
Right. Well, Z's like the center. Z's like the, he's the man of the house, and
He calls himself a prophet, does he not?
a prophet.
Yeah.
I don't know that Z would use that word to describe himself.
You never heard him call himself a prophet?
I've never heard him call himself a prophet.
You never heard him call himself Prophet Elihu?
No.
No? If he told Detective Cruz that when he was giving her his name in an interview, would that surprise you?
Eliyahu.
Yeah.
Eliyahu's his given middle name. That means Elliot. That's a Hebrew name.
Okay. But if he called himself a prophet, that would surprise you.
I mean, that kind of would surprise me that he would use that word.
Do you recall him talking about, at times, Z or any of these women in the group?
Yeah.
Do you recall them talking about the CIA coming after them and out to get them?
Yeah, there was some talk about that.
Okay. Part of the idea of this trust system, as you talked about, was keeping your property away from the government.
Sure.
You have a, let's say, healthy distrust of the government. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah.
Sure.
You part of the trust idea is that it insulates your property and your income from taxes.
Yes, it does.
Right.
No, that's a fact.
And at the time that you were with this group from May to December, Z didn't have a job, did he?
No.
Nobody else in the family had a job, right? None of the wives had jobs.
No.
Kawani's job was being a mother to this child, right?
That's right.
Do you know what source of income they were living off of?
I know that all of their finances are private through their trust. I mean,
But you don't know how they got them.
I mean that's.
Do you know anything about him submitting loans to the government during COVID with PPP money?
Yeah, I do remember there being some talk about that, but
Setting loans up in the name of a religious organization that they got money from?
okay.
I mean, are you aware of that?
I mean, I remember them doing that, yeah, but I mean, I didn't really know all the details about that, but I do remember that. Yeah, I do remember there being them using the trust.
What about also this belief in this group that there are only 168,000 souls that are alive in the world? Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, that's not unique to them.
Is that something that you hold as well?
Is my belief what's on debate here? How does this relate back to? I'm trying to understand
Just trying to understand the nature of this group.
Okay, the nature of the group in relation to the death of the child, or
In the relation to what they believed.
okay, what does that have to do with the death of the child?
Mr. Spillers, I get to ask you questions about what I would like to ask you questions about, as long as they're generally relevant.
Okay,
I'm
I'm
asking you
trying to
questions
understand how
about
this
the
is
nature
generally
of this group.
trying to understand how this is generally relevant.
I'm trying to understand why somebody believes that there's only 168,000 alive people in the world.
I personally believe that there's only 500 million bodies in this place, that the population records are all lies, and that there are much less people than there are now, and that there are only about 500 million people instead of 7 billion. So it's like when you go to New York City, and there's this is why I believe that. And so when you go to places like New York or San Francisco, or you go to any major city, really, all you have to do is count. So we're talking about a population demographic, and we're talking about a specific number of people that they say there's 2.5 million people on Manhattan Island.
Mm-hmm.
So all you have to do is go and count the people. All you have to do is drive by and look at the traffic. All you have to do is do some mathematical equations, which would really lead you to believe that there are significantly less people than what they say.
Well,
so
let me put
what
it
does that
you
have to do with NIMSI?
It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with NIMSI, sir, but I'm going to ask you questions about it for a reason.
Okay.
Let me put it to you this way. You're from the South. You grew up in North Carolina, right?
Yeah.
Born and raised there. You're familiar with the idea of college football, right?
Sure.
This weekend there's going to be a football game between the University of Tennessee and the University of Georgia in Athens, and there's going to be about 96,000 people that fill a stadium. Do you not believe there's 96,000 people that are going to be sitting in that stadium watching a football game?
I mean, if you see them, then they're there. That doesn't mean that there's 7 billion people in the world. The population charts and the demographics and the census records, I think, are a lie, much like a lot of other things. You know, there's a lot of lies in the government, sir. So, yeah, I mean, how much of these lies would you like to expose here in this room? You know, how much fact-based information are we going to discuss?
Well, let's talk a little bit more about some of that in a second. When we get to this idea about the polygamy relationships that he had with these 3 women, there was a 4th wife that he had previously. Is that right?
Yes.
You're aware of her named Gabriella Kuykendall?
Yes.
You ever met Gabriella Kuykendall?
No. I haven't.
Were you aware that when she had a child with Mr.
Yeah, I don't object to anything involving this relevant.
Relevance is your objection? You want to respond?
I think it's relevant, Judge. He talked earlier about the fact that Z had 4 wives, and we're talking about 3 wives here. And I think it's relevant to his understanding of how this group dynamic worked.
He's already testified he never met her.
I'm not asking him to matter.
All right, overrule the objection.
You're aware of who Gabriella Kuykendall is, right?
Yes.
You're aware that she had a child with Z, right?
Yes.
You're aware that she left him in the middle of the night with the child and basically ran away from him, right?
Okay.
Matter of fact, it took place at the same house where this incident happened on December 8th of 2020. Did you know that?
No.
It happened at at Jerry's house.
Okay.
Part of what Z was trying to do with this group was to grow this group, right? He was constantly looking for other women to bring into his group here, right?
Are we not all constantly seeking the companionship of compatible individuals?
I'm asking about Z right now.
Okay.
Wasn't he always trying to talk to other women about bringing them into the group as well?
I mean, sure. Yeah.
Part of what he ultimately wanted to do was to have multiple children with multiple wives as well. Is that right?
That's what I want to.
Okay. He, in fact, right now, Anna
There's
just had a child.
There's a beautiful baby in this world that Kanani just birthed. Yes, she did.
And Selig is pregnant today, right?
Shalik's about to have one too. Yep.
His mentality is to grow his religious following, right?
You just used the word religion, which I feel like is inappropriate.
Okay, his mentality is to grow his following.
His mentality is to find like-minded individuals to participate with each other. As is mine. And that's what attracts us to each other.
But Mr. Spillers, he and you don't look for like-minded individuals. You and he look for strays, like castaway dogs on the side of the road. Isn't that true?
That's really ridiculous.
Is that not what you told him in a phone call with him at the jail just a few days ago?
Is it?
I'm asking you.
I don't know. I mean,
you and he have not talked about treating these women like strays, finding these women that you can bring into your group and treat them like strays. That's not a comment that you made in a phone call?
I don't know, maybe, and maybe it was made in sarcasm, you know.
Maybe it was.
Like, I don't know. I don't remember every single word of every single thing that I've said. But no, I've never treated women in my life like that.
Well, you definitely treat them as submissive individuals, right?
No, I treat them as...
Women are subservient to you, right?
Answer the question.
He can explain his answer.
So, yeah, what's your question again?
I said at first that you treat them as submissive individuals.
No, I don't.
They're subservient to you, though, right?
I think that women should be in a place that is servant... yeah, sure.
In servitude of the man.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
100%. Yes.
Meaning that Benjamin or Z or Brian Joyce, whoever he is, he controls what they do.
No.
And if they don't do what he wants, they can get out, right?
Of course.
Right? He controls what they wear, right?
So you're asking...
Yes or no?
You're asking me
Yes or no first?
I don't know the answer to this question.
He controls what they eat, right?
We have already discussed that there is a standard, and this is the same thing that it is with me and women that I've had in my life since then. Since I've had in my entire life. When I've been a vegetarian, women who come into my life they're vegetarian, or you can not be together.
Right.
Yeah. So you're manipulating this into a control thing when it's just a standard that's set that can be avoided in any time.
If Kanani wanted to go have a hamburger at Wendy's, he'd kick her out of the car, right?
That's really a petty and childish way to describe something, and I mean, your rhetoric is utterly offensive. But no, I mean, why would she want to have, what would motivate her to eat an animal? She's the one who's telling me.
Maybe she really didn't believe in all of that.
Maybe. I mean, why not?
You testified earlier that she didn't really get to talk to her parents much, right?
Well, she was raped by her parents when she was younger and abused by them, according to her.
My question, sir, is she didn't talk to her parents much, right?
She did from time to time.
Are you aware there were times where Z would take her phone from her and she wouldn't have access to her phone to make calls to people?
Not when I was around.
Never saw that.
Never. I never saw him limit them like that. I mean, Shaylee, like, they still do things, independently, like, if you want to use that word.
His control extended to you too, right? He told you could never touch her.
Yeah, that's a very common orthodox thing, that men do not touch each other's wives, and I respect that.
Well, I'm not suggesting that men should touch each other's wives in any other sexual way. I'm just, a handshake. You couldn't even give her a handshake.
Why would I want to? Why would I want to touch another man's wife?
You started drinking urine because of him.
I started drinking urine because Peggy Schindler told me about it, and I did my research online and did some self-edification. Perhaps you should do the same.
But Peggy Schindler, I'm not drinking my urine, sir. Peggy Schindler got that information from him, right?
Did she? I don't know.
I'm asking you.
Who told me about it? I don't know.
She knew him.
Yeah, I mean, so what? Like, so there's like millions of people who drink their urine. There's like forums online with, tons of individuals, and this has become way more mainstream. And now there's like all kinds. Like I say, I mentioned Troy Casey, and I'd like to drop his name again because he's like a really prominent influencer online. And yeah, so I heard about urine therapy from Peggy. I immediately did my research about it. And I've heard about people, surviving on their urine, so I knew that it wasn't going to kill me, so I tried it. And then
And you said you do it daily.
I did.
You still maintain contact with Z?
Sure do.
Day-to-day contact?
Sure do.
You've called him probably 10 times since you've been in the jail here in Cherokee County, right?
Sure have.
You've talked to him, I guess, beginning in August or September, even through today, about the mental state that you saw from Kanani at that time.
Totally.
And your belief is, and you continue to tell him that your belief is that she was insane. I'm not making it to a legal standard of that, but you felt like she was insane.
I mean, yes, I do. I mean, call it insane, call it whatever you want. It's like, this woman was like outside of her ability to discern what was even happening, and her behavior was erratic and out of character, and she would go in and out of these phases, and yeah, I would qualify that as insane from my perspective. I've never seen anything so severe in my life.
Okay. Now, let me back you up to this incident in November in Nashville with Miss Sandra Torres.
Do it.
And I know your testimony from what you told Miss Gropper is that you believe Miss Torres was the instigator of an aggressive, violent act here, right?
Most definitely.
Okay. You did acknowledge that you were the one that got arrested based on that incident, right?
Yeah, she was the one who called the cops.
Yeah.
So.
And you left, right, before the cops got there.
Yeah, before I got shot by a woman who was threatening me with gun violence.
You could have stuck around and talked to the cops about that, though, right?
So you're saying that I should have put myself in harm's way?
Well, I don't know. Maybe you drove a mile up the road and called the cops yourself. You didn't do that either, did you?
No, I didn't.
you left. Before you left, Z had put Chloe in the car with the baby and took off, right?
Kanani got in the car by her own free will, and it was actually her that insinuated that they needed to leave.
Okay,
like I said earlier, because she could see the.
But, sir, Ms. Torres called the police because she believed there was an issue going on there, right?
Ms. Torres called the police because, I mean, I don't know why she did. I mean,
she didn't have anything to do with you all.
Right.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. That's why it's so bizarre that someone would go so far out of the way, especially, like I say, when I was carrying Kanani across the road, one of the individuals who lived in the apartment complex was walked out, and she walked by us and asked if we needed any help. And I said, no, we don't.
So maybe that lady just didn't want to involve herself with what was going on with you, right?
Or maybe that's probably what a normal person would do if they, saw some woman having a panic attack and all of the individuals around her trying to help.
Well, calling the police is not necessarily calling to get somebody in trouble. As you know, sir, you called the police yourself on December 8th because you knew there was a problem.
That's more like emergency medical.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's what calling 911 does. It gets law enforcement, it gets medical personnel, it gets EMS people out there to determine what the issue is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they believe that Kanani was having a medical emergency that needed to get attention, they could take her to the hospital. They could take her to see a doctor, right?
Sure.
You didn't want that to happen.
I don't think that my desire has any reflection on the
Z didn't want that to happen. He was the one directing that they get Chloe in the car and get out of there, right?
Actually, like I said, it was Kanani that initiated the sequence for them.
She was telling Miss Torres to call the police.
No,
she was telling Miss Torres to call her parents.
She was telling Miss Torres that she needed to call her parents, and then Ms. Torres began behaving erratically, like I said, and began behaving belligerently and aggressively and threatening us.
When you left.
So then Kanani said that, she initiated the sequence for them to leave. She could see that this woman was like this drunken, you could smell the alcohol on her, that she was just this, drunken individual who wanted to involve herself and make probably so bored with her own life or whatever that she wanted to cause drama and involve herself in somebody else's business that had nothing to do with her.
You believe that Miss Torres involved herself in someone else's situation so
Yes.
she could get attacked by you and receive a broken eye socket?
Yeah.
Sir, this is a picture that's dated November 25th of 2020.
Okay.
That's a picture that Miss Torres sent to us. That
Okay.
she took of herself that
I
day.
continue to object to publishing evidence that has not been admitted yet.
I'm not admitting it yet,
It's
Judge.
being published to the jury. It's not been identified with an exhibit number. It's not been admitted.
Sustain the objection.
So I just told you the story of what happened, and that was never brought to trial. So your assumption,
Yeah, it was never brought to trial, sir, because you pled guilty to that.
I was never brought to trial because they would never give me a trial. I sat. That's very much what happened. You can make assumptions, and
Sir, I'm not making assumptions.
you are. Making
I've seen the
assumptions.
documentation of your sentence that you received for that case out of North Carolina.
Yeah, I know.
It
Like
says
I
you
said.
pled guilty to assaulting and inflicting serious injury as a misdemeanor on Mrs. Torres.
Pursuant to Alfred law.
No, it actually doesn't say pursuant to Alfred law. That box isn't checked at all. It
Okay.
says you pled guilty.
Then that's misinformation. You could pull up the court records. I said.
That's who I got it from.
Well, then you should pull up the court records from August 29th, 2023.
That's
when I
the
was-
date that you pled guilty.
Yeah, it says the judge said very clearly before the court that it was pursuant to Alfred law. So perhaps you have some kind of.
So you're saying there's a mistake in the document.
Yes, there is.
Okay.
From
You
what I was-
understand that an offered plea is still a plea of guilty, though, right?
Yeah, but the reason why I pled guilty is because they were actually they didn't give me they were refusing to give me bond dates. They were refusing to give me court dates. They were refusing to give me a trial.
They refused to give you those things because you had violated your bond before. Is that right?
Yeah, I was actually framed by and false evidence was submitted against me by Buncombe County.
Really?
Absolutely.
Have you initiated a civil lawsuit against them for them?
Not yet, but I have spoken with some civil rights attorneys, and I have not initiated that sequence yet, but I have spoken with several attorneys.
And sir, you're currently incarcerated by the federal government, right?
Yes, I am.
For threatening a man online, right?
That's an allegation, which
I understand it's an allegation. You haven't been convicted of anything, and you stand absolutely innocent until proven guilty.
then I think that we should, not talk about that.
I'm not going to talk to you about it. I'm not going to ask you what you did. I'm not going to ask you who it is. I'm not going to ask you any of those questions. But you are currently charged with that, right?
I have currently been charged with a crime.
14 counts of crimes, correct?
Is it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Counts 1 through 14.
Okay.
For communicating threats to kill someone.
Yeah, like I say, that's still...
That's not the first time you've been charged with communicating threats to kill somebody either, is it?
Can you specifically...
I can.
No, it's not. I have never actually threatened to kill someone.
Kylie Cross.
Kylie Cross.
The girl you got the CBD from.
Kylie Cross, I had a sexual relationship with her, and I told her that and she stole $1,600 out of my dresser drawer, and I told her that if she ever came back to my house, that I was going to end her. I didn't say I was going to kill her.
That's what she thought you said, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
that's why she went to the police and had you arrested.
Yeah.
That's why you were charged with threatening her.
I probably should have taken that one to trial because I feel like I would have won.
That's two, I guess. You should have taken to trial, but you didn't. You pled guilty to that one too.
Yeah,
you got probation and 45 days in jail on that case too, right, sir?
It was actually. I'm still trying to figure out what this has to do with Hannah and what your.
It has to do with you.
Okay, and
I get to ask you questions, and it has to do with you.
Okay.
But that's what you did. You threatened her, and you spent time in jail because you pled guilty in that case.
I mean, a lot of the circumstances in my life, if I really would have just called the cops, and I should have called the cops on Kylie Cross when I caught her stealing $1,600 out of my drawer, but I couldn't really prove that. And like I say, I mean,
maybe it didn't happen.
Just as you're proving right now that there's a real sinister nature by your tone and your. I mean, we're here to talk about a baby, and all you seem to want to be is obsessed with me. So it's I'm
not obsessed with you, sir.
Then stop asking me questions about myself, and let's talk about the crime that happened.
I'm asking you about sinister things because you've committed sinister acts. And I'm asking you those things because of how they have affected this young lady as well.
Saying and doing, these all happened after this incident with Kanani. All of these circumstances happened after this incident with Kanani.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
So do you want to maybe give some? Maybe we should talk about the trauma that I experienced and how that has affected me, and what has led to me being irate with people. And like I say, the Sandra Torres thing, I'm happy to talk about that because I want that. I plan to appeal that to the Superior Court in North Carolina. And I've already spoken to civil rights attorneys about the false evidence that was submitted against me in Buncombe County.
So you're testifying. Your testimony earlier was that you never struck Sandra Torres in the eye.
No, I didn't. And there's some evidence that would prove that in the motion of discovery.
So how did she get the black eye that she says she got in those photographs?
Who knows? There was So
I can show you other photographs from her of her black eye that developed over the next 3 days. Would you like to see those?
She went to the hospital, and her hospital visit was 4 hours after the event. Maybe it was her son, the one who came and slashed tires. Maybe she had her son punch her in the face.
She might have, but we don't get to know that, sir, because you pled guilty to assaulting her.
Well,
you pled guilty to doing exactly what she says you did to her, which is punching her in the eye.
I had been held for 22 months, and I felt that I had a really strong civil rights case, and that's only been a year ago. I've already spoken to civil rights attorneys, so I did. I wanted to. I pled guilty pursuant to Alfred law because I wanted to. Stop being oppressively persecuted by the Buncombe County government, and get out so I could.
You were in jail a lot of that time because you violated your probation in your case with Kylie Cross as well, right?
No, that was not the case with Kylie Cross.
You were on probation for that case from 2022.
No, I was not. That's so I had actually become off probation, and it wasn't a violation of probation that. Can I have some more of this water? It wasn't a violation of probation that got me reincarcerated on the 5th of April 2023 after they had held me for 8 months on 24-hour house arrest. So I did 10 months in jail. I finally made bond, and they held me for 8 months. And I'm happy to talk about this. This is like a really good venue. I appreciate being able to speak this out before a court because this is all factual information that's going to come out later. And so after they held me for 8 months on 24-hour house arrest, there was a document submitted to the court by a DA, a specific DA that was targeting me, named Amy Laura Broughton, and there was false evidence submitted to the court. She brought this photo of a Facebook post that she said that I made, but it was right there it was not on my Facebook, nor did I make this post. And so, like I say, there was false evidence submitted to the court in order to persecute me and frame me, and I've already spoken to several civil rights attorneys about this, and they say they have a very strong case.
Okay.
So, we're moving forward with that in due diligence, and I absolutely have every intention of appealing that guilty plea to the Superior Court of North Carolina and making sure that I get a fair trial, because that's the whole thing. They didn't want to. That's why they held me for so long, and they were refusing to give me court dates even by law. But like I say, and so like I say, I pled guilty to that to end my incarceration. But I came here today to tell my experience with Kanani and give an account to my observation of her and her mental health decline. And I'll say it again, that I do feel like not guilty by reason of insanity would be the correct call from my unprofessional perspective. Perhaps there's something, I just don't feel like I say, she would never do that to her baby. And this was just like, she was like not herself when she did that. And I want her to know that I care about her, and I forgive her, and I love her very much. And that's it.
Any redirect?
Just briefly. Mr. Spillers, you indicated that you had had multiple conversations with her after she was arrested for murdering Hannah, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And when she called Z from jail.
Okay. And so you indicated the nature of those was communicating how much you all love her and that you forgive her for what she did.
Yes.
Did she ever tell you why she killed Hannah?
No. I don't think she ever really did. I mean, she spoke to Z about it. I remember, and I'm giving you secondhand information here.
Don't do that. I'm asking, did she ever tell, when you talked to her, did she ever tell you?
I don't remember her ever saying anything about that.
Okay. Did she ever tell you that she told the police that she killed Hannah because she just wanted to be with her baby and her husband, but he refused?
What do you mean?
Did she ever tell you that that's what she told the police? That she just wanted to be with him and Hannah, but he refused?
Oh, no way.
Okay. You've
No,
never heard that before?
Nothing like that.
Okay.
No. I could tell you something, but I don't know. I mean,
did she ever tell you that she told doctors that she killed Hannah because she thought it was the only way for her and Hannah to be able to escape the situation?
No, definitely not.
You've never heard that before?
No.
Okay. Nothing further.
Any further cross-examination? All right. Then we are going to let you take a recess, members of the jury, until 3 o'clock. Leave us your notepads. Don't talk about the case with anybody. We are going to as I said, we're going to ask you to be back at 3 o'clock in the jury room, but you can step downstairs, walk around, take a break, and we'll see you back at 3. Thank you.